everyone, welcome to our new topic of protists. Now, protists are a really interesting kingdom of organisms that actually are kind of the catch-all for living organisms. If something doesn't quite fit into the animal kingdom or the plant kingdom or the fungus kingdom, but it is eukaryotic, meaning it has complex cells, then it is most likely going to go in the protist kingdom. So protists are those eukaryotic complex cells that are not really animals, not really plants, and not really fungi. Most of them are single-celled organism or unicellular, and they prefer aquatic or moist environments like ponds, lakes, and rivers. Now, like I said, they don't quite fit into the other categories. There are many, many, many different types of protists, but basically, they're eukaryotic organisms that don't fit in the plant, animal, or fungus kingdom. Let's break that down a little bit more. There are three different categories or types of protists. There are animal-like protists, ones that maybe we used to have in the animal kingdom, but we realized they don't really quite fit in the animal kingdom. They're heterotrophs, which means that they get their energy from something else, and most of them can move. They either have flagella, which is like a tail, or pseudopod, which is like little feet, or cilia, which are hairs that help them move along. There are also plant-like protists. Now, these ones are autotrophs. They actually are able to make their own energy, and they do that by doing photosynthesis, kind of like a plant would, but just like the animal-like protists are single cells, the plant-like protists are also single cells, and they don't really fit into the plant kingdom. The third type of protist we have are fungus-like protists. They are heterotrophs, just like fungus, which were decomposers. And the fungus-like protists are heterotrophs that do have cell walls, and they do have spores for their sexual reproduction. Let's look at some examples. These are some animal-like protists. You've actually seen some of this under the microscope at school. I know that you've seen an amoeba, and they move because they have pseudopods. Those are kind of like little feet that reach out of their body and help them move. You can see they have a nice big nucleus, and they don't have cell walls. They have a very flexible shape. This is a paramecium, and you can see on this paramecium, it has these little hair-like structures that actually help it move. It is only a single cell, so even though it does not have a cell wall, and it is eukaryotic and it can move, it is an animal-like protist, not an animal. And this is a type of protist that actually causes leishmaniasis, which is a disease in humans, and it moves by having a flagella that is like a tail that helps it swim, and you can see it has nucleus inside the cell. So it is a complex eukaryotic cell, but it is not a multicellular organism. Therefore, we call it an animal-like protist, not an animal. Next, we have our plant-like protists, and you can see a common theme in these plant-like protists. What color are they? They are green. Why are they green? Because they have chlorophyll to do photosynthesis. So if you've gone to the beach and you've seen some kind of like seaweed-looking algae, you've seen a plant-like protist or a group of plant-like protists. Now, I know this looks multicellular, but it's pretty much it's single cellular, unicellular, but it's a lot of those organisms kind of stuck together and next to each other. And so it looks multicellular, but it's single cellular. Now, you've also maybe heard of euglena or dinoflagellates or chrysophytes, but the most common type of protist that you might have heard of, and I know we saw in the documentary we watched in class called One Strange Rock, the one with Will Smith, it is diatoms. Now, diatoms are a plant-like protist. They are single cellular like all the other plant-like protists, and they are actually organisms that live in the ocean, and they produce almost all of the oxygen that you are breathing in. They live out in the ocean, and they do photosynthesis, and they produce a lot of oxygen for the living world to use. Those are diatoms. Last category is fungus-like protists. They, like the molds, do look like fungus, but they are single cellular. They're just a bunch of single cellular organisms that are right next to each other, so they look multicellular. But as single cellular organisms, they're fungus-like protists, and they live in some kind of moist environments too. Like some of them can live on fish. I know, like I have a lot of fish in our classroom, and I always check and make sure I don't see any water molds on them. You might have seen water molds on rotten potatoes or even you might have seen slime molds out in the natural environment around your house. If you've ever seen something kind of brightly colored on a fallen log or maybe a tree that's starting to rot, you might have seen a fungus-like protist that is slime molds. Again, protists are kind of like animals, kind of like plants, kind of like fungus, but they're unicellular and they don't quite fit into those categories. Let's review. So, what kind of cells do protists have? They have eukaryotic cells. They are complex eukaryotic cells. Are protists usually unicellular or multicellular? They're usually unicellular. They're made of just one cell. Now, they can be in groups of unicellular organisms, but they typically, as a whole organism, are just unicellular. Where do protists live? They live in the water, so aquatic or moist places like ponds, rivers, and lakes, and some, like the diatoms, even live in the ocean. And what are three types? There's animal-like, plant-like, and fungus-like protists. So the way that we categorize them is based on what other eukaryotic kingdoms they're similar to. So it actually used to be that they fit into those other categories, but now because we have more technology, we're able to distinguish between the plants and the plant-like protists, between animals and animal-like protists, and between fungus and fungus-like protists. Thanks for listening.